Hare Krishna. Just give me 1 minute. Hope you can hear me. Okay. Okay. Let's start our regular prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि श्री गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, welcome everyone for today's session. I was just wondering if possible, if I can take very quick summary of the previous session, chapter 16. We covered this chapter a few days back. Let me just share the screen. It was about divine and demoniac nature. So I'm just browsing through that quickly. So we discussed at the start of this about Krishna actually discusses divine and demoniac quality. Divine quality, very small section where he highlights all the important principles which we need to develop as a part of our regular life. And then he immediately shifts to demoniac qualities. Now these are very important qualities because in this age, and specifically we being in the material world, we actually face this day in day out, these different things. So arrogance, harshness, not having proper behavior, all these things, and specifically the nature, inner nature. People engage in horrible works for the self satisfaction, and then just to gratify senses they engage in all kinds of different activities, exploiting each other and all that. And ultimately the whole consciousness is all about I'll just gain more and more and increase in the future. He is my enemy, he has to be killed, and I'm the only enjoyer, all my relatives are aristocratic. And with that kind of mindset, such people have a lot of anxieties throughout their life and they ultimately fall into hell. Krishna says for such people it's very difficult to come out of this because unfortunately for such people there is nobody to guide them. All their so-called aristocratic relatives are also demoniac mindset, and even if there happens to be somebody who can guide them nicely, these people have no mindset to listen to them, so they gradually sink down to this such kind of abominable existence with lust, anger, and greed. And Krishna also discusses about the importance of regulations of scriptures, because whatever is written in scriptures, and if we can listen to great souls, it actually can brings us to real perfection and happiness. And some or other we have to consciously resist these demonic temptations, and we have to strive to develop the divine qualities. So this we discussed in the previous chapter. So starting today, it's a super exciting and extremely practical chapter. So this particular section where about we discuss this 17th chapter is actually kind of continuation, because this divine and demoniac nature, they arises from the deep conviction of what one believes in. So if you think of what one believes in, it actually the whole faith get constituted by certain activities and certain lifestyle habits. That's what we are going to discuss in this chapter. So this chapter is also called as um, Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga. Shraddha means faith, Traya means three divisions, Vibhaga Yoga. So these three divisions of faith are based on goodness, passion, and ignorance. So at the start of this chapter itself, Arjuna starts analyzing, because he, after hearing all this demonic and divine nature, he's thinking that what might cause person to either sink down or elevate. So he is thinking primarily from the faith perspective, because whatever actions we are doing, whatever thoughts we are harboring in our mind, they are all based on certain things which we do. So that faith decides whether we become divine nature or a demoniac nature. So this entire person's character, person's destiny is actually decided by his faith. So Arjuna is asking very interesting question. How the three modes of material nature, that is goodness, passion, and ignorance, how are they influencing faith, worship, food, sacrifice, austerity, charity? We'll discuss all of this as a part of this particular chapter. And specifically, he is asking what is the importance of scriptural guidance. What happens who don't follow, and what happens to them who actually follow this scriptural guidance sincerely. So Krishna actually is going to discuss all of this. Um, this uh, this four this the topics which we discussed about worship, food, sacrifice. Actually, whatever our faith is, whatever our inner conviction is. So inner conviction actually gets built by when we read scriptures, when we hear from others, and contemplate. When we contemplate a lot, that's what actually drives our inner conviction. So if we have to change somebody's nature, it's not easy thing. No matter how much external bombardment might happen, but till the time person is convinced from within and he contemplates on that truth, and then he decides to change himself, the change in nature is not possible. So this different three modes of material nature, they actually reflect in food, sacrifice, austerity, charity. So the goal of all this exercise is to understand where we are and how to progress to the next level. So very important. Now what we discuss day in, day out, what we think about, what we glorify while talking to others, it's all our different heroes of different faith. So this particular faith, it arises from one's own nature. That is the first thing. What kind of nature I have acquired? The goodness, passion, ignorance, of course. And what is influenced by my previous impressions. So this previous impressions means what kind of activity I had been doing in my recent past. So based on that, Sabhava gets built, but it is not something like a hard rock. It is possible to change it, but how to change it? The whole Bhagavad Gita is all about that only. The very first thing, we need to have a proper knowledge what to do, what not to do. So it is said in Bhagavad Gita 17.4, the men in mode of goodness, they worship demigods. And those in the mode of passion, they worship demons. Those in the mode of ignorance worship ghost and spirit. So how it translates to us. Men in mode of goodness, they worship demigods, means various kinds of god, Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesh, or even Vishnu, or different types of gods. But these gods are heavenly realistic gods who are actual, they are even either they are giving themselves directly, or they are empowered to give proper benedictions. So when generally benedictions comes from the higher authorities, they generally takes care of our consciences also, that we will not become too much of pride, and we will use the benediction for right causes. So when we worship in mode of goodness, the it's actually consciousness elevating. And it also depends on, if we discuss about how Lord is his activities in pastimes in different incarnations, how he behaved in the Vrindavan, what he spoke in Mahabharata, how he dealt with different types of devotees, all these activities when we discuss day in, day out, they actually get they our these activities are of Lord, they are like magnet. They attract our consciousness automatically. But instead of that, we just discussed about movies or Fortune 500 company, who is the richest person, and we don't bother how he has reached to that level, whether he has bulldozed many other people on the way, or he has been genuinely struggling and reaching. When we just discuss the end results of this material achievement, then we mostly end up worshipping. Worshipping means in mind we are just appreciating their position. So we just worship such kind of demons. So we just see superficials, and we do not understand what kind of mindset or what kind of habits such people or such personalities have. And in the mode of ignorance, they are not even interested in their own material elevation nor spiritual elevation. It's a proper destruction of time and resources. They go and worship ghost and spirit, so that only so that their enemies will get tortured. They themselves may not get anything, but they just want to torture others in the process of such kind of worship, they themselves torture in their bodies also. We'll see that in the following section. But to summarize this, in Sattvic faith, we generally aspire elevation towards the higher spiritual knowledge. In a Rajasic, that is a passionate faith. When our faith is made up of that type, we just focus on passionate and materialistic progress to achieve all these things in life. And Tamasic faith is all about worshipping dark, destructive forces. You might be knowing about black magic and so many other things which people try, and they attract all these ghosts and hobgoblins to achieve their personal destructive objectives. So this all, what kind of faith we are practicing is actually expressed in our mind. First, to start with our mind, what we contemplate on, then how we that also translate in our words, and of course later on into action. Now, the faith, whatever we discussed, is actually reflects in four things: food, sacrifice, austerities, and the penances. So we will discuss all of that in sequence. Sorry, food, sacrifice, austerity, and the charity. That is the last thing. So food, it's a very very important, because the kind of food we get attracted, or kind of food we look forward to, is what our consciousness gets made of, because this food is actually getting absorbed in our body, and our body accordingly it actually creates a lot of impressions. So if I'm, for example, if I'm killing some animal, the animal might have gone so much of fear and anger at the time of death. If I'm eating its flesh, all the hormones and the particularly the software, that consciousness which that animal is having, fear and anger, I'm going to absorb all of that. But instead of that, if I'm having sattvic food, the cow who is lovingly prepared that milk for the calf, or the fruits or the grains which are actually designated with so much of creative energy, then actually I'm elevating my consciousness. So this sattvic food which promotes longevity, which is the duration of life, the purity, strength, primarily health and happiness, satisfaction, all this comes in the mode of goodness. So such food is generally juicy, fatty and wholesome. They give actually full satisfaction to body, and very very conducive towards a spiritual progress. The rajasic food, that is something which is like always on fire, the mode of passion, which is too bitter, too sour, salty, hot and pungent. People want chilies left and right, and they want to have such a boiling hot, and they don't care what is happening with their stomach and what will happen tomorrow to their whole digestive system. They just want to, they have been trained to this, just enjoy such a fiery, spicy food all the time. And what it leads to, it's pain, misery, distress, because the whole consciousness of eating others' flesh, eating spices, food, it's all just leading to miserable existence, and it leads a lot of distress and disease. So such kind of super spicy food, it comes in the mode of passion. And tamasic food is particularly prepared long back. This is stale, it's decomposed, it's a putrid, has no life left, honestly speaking. Even so many pizzas and so many burgers we get, they have been prepared in such a nice plastic chemicals that they remain as it is for months together. They don't get rot at all. And all these kind of things when we eat, even the wines which are kind of the reformatory, or what they call it, they rot actually the foods and grain and different kinds of ingredients, vegetable ingredients, and they rot it for months, and then they prepare such things. So by consuming these things, person actually make up his consciousness for laziness and ignorance. So one cannot have a proper clarity of thoughts of what to do and what not to do if somebody is looking forward for such kind of rajasic or tamasic food. So such food which actually influences our mind, our actions, and our consciousness. So we need to be very, very careful what is going inside our body. That is what is going to make my mind and my body, and that is also going to define my spiritual practice. So this food are one of the most important thing which we can definitely control. Now, the next important part is sacrifice. Sacrifice means generally we give up something. We can give up time, we can give up comfort, energy, money, whatever resources. But what is the purpose behind this sacrifice? How this sacrifice are being carried out? That's what defines the mode in which this sacrifice is being done. So let's say sattvic sacrifice. Sattvic sacrifice means first thing I'm following the scriptures. This is not something which is manufactured by my mind and then I conduct something. I manufacture some Baba as a god and come up with some different scriptures and to glorify him, compose some songs and then do it. No. These are all authentic scriptures and I follow the proper process. Primarily, I perform all these sacrifices as a duty without any expectation of any material rewards. So, such a sattvic sacrifice, which is when it is being done, it of course it leads to pleasure of the Lord and elevation of spiritual consciousness. The Rajasic sacrifice, when it is done, it is all about just show. People may sponsor so many things, people may throw so many things, but it is all about attracting material benefits and prestige and headlines in the newspapers or social media. They are all ostentatious. Ostentatious. Ostentatious means this is something purely for superficial show. It is all desire driven, and most likely sometime it may even result to torture of body and to the soul. Now, if you look at the first line here, 17.5 and 6, I was thinking how if person is doing a rajasic sacrifice is torturing the soul, because in the 13th chapter we actually the nature enjoyer consciousness, we saw this analogy that two birds sitting on the same tree, one particular bird is trying to enjoy, other is just observing. But honestly speaking, if I'm connected to somebody, if my kids are suffering or if my close relatives are suffering, although my body may not feel direct pain, but I actually still feel pain that they had to go through such kind of suffering. Sometimes such a pain is much more than me and my body directly suffering. So for super soul, when he sees that soul is undergoing so much of ups and downs in his life and so much of torture only for the sake of flickering material pleasure, it is actually torture for the super soul who is just waiting for the soul to pick up some spiritual path. So when people, demonic people particularly, for lust, attachment, foolish and all that, um, with that mindset, when they torture material elements of the body, they actually torture the super soul which is dwelling within. And what is a tamasic sacrifice? So we will see the tamasic charity, tamasic sacrifice means giving up something. It is nothing to do with the elevation of consciousness, nothing to do with the scripture, nothing to do with the material benefits also. It is just about pure lower level enjoyment. It doesn't have involve any mantras, no remuneration to any kind of priest, no distribution of prasadam, that is distribution of the results to assembly, nothing as such. So these are all tamasic sacrifice. So the sacrifice, the word itself means something we are giving up. We saw the spiral of sacrifice in the chapter 4. We saw the cycle of sacrifice in chapter 3. So this is all done for the offering to please the Supreme. So it pleases, this sacrifice actually purifies the performer and it elevates his consciousness step by step. So sacrifice is specifically meant, if it is done with the proper driving force, it is meant to elevate the consciousness. Now it comes about austerity. So austerity is something which is done voluntarily and it is done in knowledge. So it's very important to understand what is the austerity. So austerity, it's of three kinds: body, speech, and mind. So bodily austerity, it is actually worshipping and bowing down in front of Supreme Lord, Brahmanas, spiritual masters, and superiors. Of course, to keep the God, our own body and surrounding very super clean, living as simple as possible, and not just living the. I mean, one may be earning a lot of money, but we can stay as simple as possible, following celibacy and non-violence. All these things are actually really very important for austerity of body. Now, austerity of speech. Austerity of speech, I mean, we people just speak whatever it comes in their mind. But before we speak, it has to pass through certain filters. Very first filter is whatever I'm speaking, is it truthful? The very important part is it truthful? The next is whether whatever I'm going to speak, if it is pleasing. So person, if his mind gets agitated, then even if I'm speaking something truthful, it will lead to some wrong results. First thing, it has to be truthful, it has to be pleasing, non-agitating, and it should be beneficial to others. So it is end to end. I have to think that whether I'm speaking truthfully, whether I'm not agitating other person, so that he can take proper decision, whether it will definitely benefit him, and most importantly, am I using pleasing words? How all these things can be achieved? This is the last thing. Regularly reciting Vedic literature. What we come across is actually constitute our vocabulary and the way we present the facts. So if we are just reading Twitter where people just shout at each other, or we read some social media, or we watch some nonsensical movies, the words which come out of our mouth, they will not be, first of all, truthful. They will not be very pleasing. They will always be irritating to somebody and hardly any benefit to anybody. So it's very important that we read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, we hear from others, and most importantly, we contemplate these things. So when this Vedic literatures remains in our consciousness, automatically our vocabulary will be all spiritual. So what we speak, how we speak, how we deliver the message, everything will be reflecting in how we contemplate on the messages of Vedic literature. And coming to the last point of this, the austerity of mind, what is it? Satisfaction in whatever we have, simplicity, that is not artificial simplicity, we are genuinely simplicity, simple, grave, and not just cracking some jokes or making fun of others and enjoying that. So one should be grave. And self-control, the self-control, again, the self-control of senses, self-control of mind, speech, everything is involved in that. And purification of one's existence, these are all austerities of the mind. So when we perform these austerities, there are two things in austerities. One is sacrifice and one is penance. So I wanted to discuss both. So sacrifice, as we already discussed, sacrifice I give up right now for the sake of my future. That if I give up these things, if I follow certain things, then it will benefit me in the future. But what is penance? Penance means I have already done something wrong in my past, and now I realize, I repent. The exact word for penance is prayaschitta. Now I do these activities that maybe I self-discipline myself, or I might perform certain activities to reform the whatever bad things I had done. So there are sattvic tapas. So first thing, it is done with the faith in Supreme, knowing that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. So I might have done something wrong. Krishna says even that person may do, the devotee may do any abominable activity, but as long as he's situated in devotional service, he will perform such a kind of penances and he'll come to the right path. So these penances are actually done with thought that, oh, I did something wrong, or I am such a fallen soul. Let me perform these things so that I can at least come to level where I can appreciate, where I can appreciate the Lord. So this penance is done without any material expectations. But this Rajasic and Tamasic penances, they are done again just to show off and acquire some kind of prestige. It is done in a very egoistic manner with harm to body and instability. So here there is you can see the picture of Dhritarashtra where he burned himself at the end of his life. So he realized that he had tortured these Pandavas throughout his life, and he had done so many wrong things. After hearing from Vidura, he realized he has done so many wrong things, and he decides to burn his body to ashes. So it's also one kind of penance, but definitely that's in a mode of Rajasic and Tamasic. He didn't practice devotional service, or he didn't do any of that kind of sort to elevate his consciousness. So the penance which is performed out of pride and for the sake of gaining respect, honor, and worship, it is in mode of passion. It's neither stable nor permanent. But the penance, and of course, the penance which is performed out of foolishness or self-torture to destroy or injure others. What is an awesome example? Penance performed in, or sacrifice performed in a self-destructive manner, like suicide bombers. They destroy themselves, they destroy everybody else, and it doesn't lead to any good results. This is in mode of pure ignorance. Now let's come to charity. So charity also, it's not that everything we give away, it's always leading to good results. Charity can be done in different modes as well. It can be in mode of goodness, it could be in mode of passion and ignorance. So intentions behind charity, they matters the most. So first thing, when we do charity out of duty, it's not that I'm doing some favor to anybody. If God has given me so much, it is my duty to share it with others. So that's a duty consciousness. Of course, without any expectation in return, I'm just doing that as a duty at proper time. So if you remember, people used to say that what is the Labha, Amruta, or there are different Hora in which they calculate when I should do the proper charity. We have various Muhurtas also, or specific days where people perform a lot of charity, and proper place, and most importantly to proper worthy cause or person. It's very important that we should consider all these factors while performing charity, which will lead us to proper results. Our mind will not get agitated, we will be stable, and it will lead good results in due course for our consciousness. So this mode of goodness charity is very important. What about the charity performed in a mode of passion? So I given an example when I'm giving some charity to some political party or some birthday of some political leader. It is not for as if I genuinely appreciate that personality. Most likely, it is done either with some expectation or with some grudging mood, that it is some kind of money which is given for damage control or for safety purposes. If I don't give this charity, there will be in future I'll be in soup. Or if I give this charity, the other person will help me in future. So it's not just political party, but anybody who we uh, like, even I give it to school for name and fame, or even I give it to build a hospital or anything else where I'm expecting some that people should recognize my name and fame. That is in mode of passion. So this is with the desire of some kind of fruitive results, and it is not done in a proper mood. So this kind of charity always leads to agitation of mind. I did so much, but then people are not recognizing me because I did it with the expectation that people will recognize me. So this charity, which is done not as a duty, not it is done not as a duty, but with the expectation of some result, without considering time, place, or even worthy person. It could be in the mode of passion. Of course, we may give charity to some good causes, like some maybe good political parties, maybe even people who are doing some right activities, people who are like serving some other good people, some prashadam distribution. All that comes in the good part, but we try to our consciousness perspective, we try to just please the Lord, that by performing this activity, my Supreme Lord get pleased. May all these activities will help the end beneficiary to get attracted towards the Supreme. If that is the consciousness, it helps us. And now the charity performed in ignorance, what is it? At impure place, improper time, unworthy persons. So you might be, I mean, in one of my previous job, one of our boss, he just sponsored beer for everybody. Drink whatever you want it. I'm sponsoring it. Or worst is that there are some beggars and we are giving them money instead of somebody is distributing them beer bottles. Or most importantly, this last line, without proper attention. Charity is done as if we are throwing people, means like we are throwing money and people are gathering. So anybody is doing such kind of charity without proper attention or respect for the recipient. It's not that we are looking down on them. If somebody is doing disrespectful charity, it all comes in mode of ignorance. In anything done in mode of ignorance does not lead to any benefit. So while performing charity, the consciousness of the giver, mood of the receiver, time, place, expectation, purpose, everything should be appropriate. Now, while we discuss this sacrifice, the penance, the charity, and all of this, all these activity, they actually lead us. But Krishna actually emphasizes very important point at the end of this chapter, that when we keep this in mind, it helps us to elevate our consciousness. These three words, Om Tat Sat, you might see these words in many scriptures and even many lectures or even many writings also. So this Om designates the scriptural regulations. So this we are follow whenever somebody is following scriptural regulations, the Om word comes first. Then Tat means that means the transcendental reality. So I'm designating my this activity of charity, sacrifice, penance for purpose of transcendental benefit and not for any material entanglement. And the last word, Sat, that's also very important. Sat indicates absolute nature. Absolute nature means something which is truth or absolute truth. So, this Sat, the absolute truth, is nothing but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, anybody is performing the devotion process, the devotee, and the Supreme Lord, everything comes this because these are the only three realities: the devotees, the Supreme Lord, and devotional service. So, Om Tat Sat is actually I'm following scriptural regulation. I'm doing it for the pleasure of Lord, and this is the only truthful, realistic process. So, with this consciousness, when we perform this any sacrifice, austerity, charity, penances, so all these things, Om Tat Sat. So, I'm doing it for the pleasure of Lord. I'm doing it for by following scriptural regulations, and I'm doing it for the absolute truth. Then it definitely leads to elevation of consciousness. But Krishna says in the last verse of this particular chapter, anything done as a sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme, O son of Pruta, is impermanent. That means if we put Krishna out of the picture, then everything is just about just me and mine, my personal benefit. So all this so-called sacrifice, superficial show off of penance and charity, it is called as asat. Krishna says it is useless both in this life and even in next because it does not lead to any kind of good results. So just to conclude this chapter again, faith shapes every aspect of our life, right from food and how we think, how we react, how we express, how we respond. Everything is defined by this faith. So we have to refine it with scriptural study. We have to act in mode of goodness so that we gradually elevate towards transcendent and attain eternal devotion. And all these activities we have to perform with attention. The consciousness should be there that after having this knowledge, how can I apply this knowledge? Am I doing it for right purpose? Am I doing it in right manner? All this attention and respectful attitude has to be there. So with these pure intentions, deep faith and scriptural guidance, we will definitely successful in all our activities. Thank you so much for your attention. And if you have any specific questions, we'd like to take over. We have 6-7 minutes to go. Please feel free to ask. If not, as usual, I'll cover the summary of this chapter. But if you have anything in mind, please feel free to ask. Okay, then I wanted to specifically thank for joining it today on a short notice. So we'll go quickly over this chapter again. So this chapter 17, Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga, it's actually division of faith. It actually emphasizes how the faith decides our destiny and character. And Arjuna is particularly wanting to know depth of this faith, that how much it influences the methods of worship, the food, sacrifice, austerity, charities. Because if you look at this particular part, worship and food might be external, but sacrifice, austerity, charity, this is all internal consciousness level things. And Arjuna want to know that how this goodness, passion, ignorance, they influence all of this. And what happens to people who do not follow scriptures. So while explaining this, Krishna starts explaining that the faith is something which is actually arises from the deep contemplation or appreciation which we harbor in our mind. So it arises from our own nature, what kind of efforts we have put in past to come to this level of nature, kind of previous impressions and inclinations which we have gathered by doing certain acts in past, and current guna in which I am right now. But um, means this core nature can be changed if we learn these scriptures. Most importantly, contemplate, because whatever we are doing right now, it could be considered like eating the food, but the digestion, the more important part, the contemplation, it should happen on the messages which we are discussing. So Krishna says in mode of people who are in mode of goodness, they worship demigods because they are looking for some higher knowledge and spiritual elevation. People in the mode of passion, they worship some local cricket stars, movie star, or some kind of people who are printing maximum money, or even some kind of demigods, but it is all about just material benefits. And people who have the faith in the mode of ignorance, they just worship ghosts and spirits, because what they are looking is just a destruction of their own enemies, and they have zero desire to elevate themselves spiritually or materially. So this what we thought, that appreciation, what we appreciate within mind, it actually is expressed to our words and actions as well. So Krishna starts, the first part is about ingredient, the food which we have on regular basis. Sattvic food, it leads to the purity of consciousness, health and happiness. It generally is a vegetarian food. It comes from very pure methods, not any kind of torture or not any kind of exploitation or manipulation. So this sattvic foods actually leads to pure consciousness. It's very, very congenial and beneficiary for elevating the consciousness. The tamasic food, the one which is super spicy, hot, burning, too sour, too bitter. I mean, it may appear like a zazzy food, something which is smoky, but ultimately it leads to misery and distress, because that kind of consciousness gets absorbed via food to our body. And tamasic food, it always leads to degradation of consciousness, because we are eating something which is from fridge to oven, and then all the elements are just putrid, and this is all just all made up of untouchable things, so it doesn't lead to any kind of elevation. After food, we discussed about sacrifice drivers. Drivers means the driving forces actually behind sacrifice. So once something which is done as a duty without expectation, that is in mode of goodness, which is done for show and for name and fame, as we discussed in the previous chapter, the demoniac nature, so many qualities are given. Their sacrifices are also for just for recognitions. They have nothing to do with the pleasure of the Lord. They just want their own glorification. That is a passionate. And tamasic sacrifice is all about um, no remuneration to priest, not considering any kind of distribution of prashadam or no mantras, nothing. That comes to this tamasic level. Austerity, again, this is important fact that austerity consists of body, mind, and speech. Bodily austerity is using body for the right purpose, bowing down in front of spiritual master, in front of deities, remaining clean, celibate, and non-violent. Austerity of speech, this is very important, because when we read regularly scriptures, or when we read the right sources, the kind of thoughts we have, they get transformed into the speech. And then it should be truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating. So person should feel soothing in his heart, happy, and he should be able to take proper decisions. So that's the importance of proper speech. Of course, mind austerity is to remain simple, remain grave, self-controlled, and focusing on purification of one's existence. Penances is something which we have done in past, and I want to reform that by performing some austerities in the present. So I had to first of all remember the Lord. We have to take the help of Lord to refine the consciousness. And if we are not worried about, if you are not considering God, if you want to throw the God out of picture, the Rajasic and Tamasic manner, it is just about my own glorification. It is done with the harm, and it is done with the consciousness of pride and ego. So penances which are performed with pride and